오헨리 단편 소설 20년 후 After 20 Years. The policeman on a beat moved up the avenue impressively. It was nearly 10 o'clock at night, a chilly wind was blowing, and few people were on the street. He tried shop doors and twirled his club in circles as he went. Now and then he stopped and cast watchful eyes to the main street. Most of the doors belonging to the business places had already closed. Only a cigar store and a restaurant were still open. Suddenly, the policeman slowed his walk. A man in a darkened hardware store leaned against its door with unlit cigar
in his mouth.
As the policeman walked up to him, the man spoke. "It's all right, officer," he said. "I'm just waiting for a friend." "It's an appointment made 20 years ago. Sounds a little funny to you, doesn't it?" "About 20 years ago, there was a restaurant where this store stands, Big Joe Brady's restaurant." "Until 5 years ago," says the policeman. "It was torn down then." 20 years ago tonight," says the man, "I dined here at Big Joe Brady's with Jimmy Wells, my best friend and the finest fellow in the world. He and I grew up together here in New York, just like two brothers. I was 18 and Jimmy was 20. The next morning I was to leave for the West to make my fortune. You couldn't have dragged Jimmy out of New York. He thought it was the only place on earth. Well, we agreed that night that we would meet here again exactly 20 years from that date and time. And it didn't matter what our conditions might be or from what distance we might have to travel. We expected that in 20 years, each of us we would be rich." Then the man in the doorway struck a match and lit his cigar. The light showed a pale, square-jawed face with keen eyes and a little white scar near his right eyebrow. "It sounds pretty interesting," said the policeman. "It seems to me that it is quite a long time between meetings. Haven't you heard from your friend since you left?" "We talked for a while," says the other, "but after a year or two, we lost track of each other. You see, the West is a large place, and I had to move from one place to another. I came 1,000 miles to meet him tonight, and it's worth it if my old friend turns up." The waiting man pulled out a handsome watch, and its lead was set with small diamonds. 3 minutes to 10, he announced. It was exactly 10 o'clock when we parted here at the restaurant door. "Did you make a lot of a fortune out west?" asked the policeman. "You bet. I hope Jim has done half as well. He was a hard worker and a good fellow. I've had to compete with some of the sharpest people to make my fortune." A man gets loose in New York. It takes the West to put a razor edge on him. The policeman twirled his club and took a step or two. "I'll be on my way. Hope your friend comes soon. Will you wait for him longer?" "I'll give him half an hour at least. If Jimmy is alive, he'll be here by that time. So long, officer." There was now a fine, cold drizzle falling, and the wind had begun to blow steadily. A few passengers hurried silently through the rain, with coat collars turned high and pocketed hands. And in the door of the hardware store, the man who had come 1,000 miles to fill an appointment smoked his cigar and waited. He waited about 20 minutes. Then he saw a tall man in a long overcoat with collar turned up to his ears hurried across from the opposite side of the street. He went directly to the waiting man. "Is that you, Bob?" he asked doubtfully. "Is that you, Jimmy Wells?" cried the man in the door. "It's unbelievable," exclaimed the new arrival, grasping both the other's hands with his own. "Is Bob really you? I was certain I'd find you here if you were still alive. Well, 20 years is a long time. The old restaurant's gone, Bob. I wish it had lasted, so we could have had another dinner there. How has the West treated you, old man? Excellent. I have everything I asked for. You've changed a lot, Jimmy. I never thought you were that tall. Oh, I grew a bit after I was 20. Doing well in New York, Jimmy? Yes, I'm fine. I have a position in one of the city departments. Come on, Bob. Let's go to a place I know, and we can have a long talk about old times. The two men started up the streets, arm in arm. The man from the West boasted about the story of his success. The other, deep in his overcoat, listened with interest. A drugstore stood at the corner. It was bright with electric lights. When they came into this glare, they could see each other's face. The man from the West stopped suddenly and released his arm. You are not Jimmy Wells, he cried. 20 years is a long time, but not long enough to change a man's nose from Roman to a pug. It sometimes changes a good man into a bad one, says the tall man. You've been under arrest for 10 minutes, Silky Bob. Chicago thinks you may have dropped off our way and sent us a message that she wants to talk with you. Going quietly, are you? That's sensible. Now, before we go on to the station, here's a note I was asked to hand you. You may read it here at window. It's from Patrolman Wells. The man from the West took the note. His hand was steady at first, but it trembled a little when he had finished. The note was rather short. Bob, I was at a appointed place on time. When you struck your match to light your cigar, I thought it was the face of the man wanted in Chicago. I just couldn't arrest you myself, so I went around and got a plain clothes to the job. Jimmy.